missionaries and Jesuits went in every part of the world where people lived in the innocence of their communion with nature, where that innocence was translated into rites of passages, where nakedness was part of daily life, only to bring shame with the cross. See? Because you can't rule people who are comfortable naked. You can only rule people who feel shame. So that goes a long way. Dividing human in half, dividing somehow, gives the access to manipulate them. When you feel totality, you are unmanipulatable. And sex, of course, here holds tremendous power, because this is the universal power experienced at that very, very vintage point of individuality.
My question is about the spiritual potential of sexuality, and this question comes from a very deep overwhelm, like a profound question mark about why sex exists. I don't understand that. I went into this topic of sex as if it would be the Holy Grail. And being so curious and restless about it, might have had so many reasons that are like trauma or neurosis or cultural conditioning. However, maybe unconsciously, I was also very much on point, but I didn't know, and nobody else knew. The fact that humans can have sex seems to prove God in a more direct way than climbing on a tree, for example. And my question is if that is true. And I'm not talking about better sex. I'm not talking about optimizing my sex life. I'm not talking about a better orgasm. I'm talking about truth. Does sex have Shiva's revealing power in a more useful or powerful or concrete way than everything? What can it teach us when we listen, not as a consumer? Like, I remember so so many situations when I saw the erection of my partner or whomever. And I saw that if he would recognize himself as God, if he would see what I see. But he didn't. He didn't. He didn't want to die enough. So all my longing for worshipping somebody went into emptiness. Everybody wants to be worshipped within the cage, and I wanted to die or whatever. I think it comes down to two questions. One question is sex, let's say between two people, between a man and a woman, to make it easy, talented in an extraordinary way, like in a quantum leap sense, when it comes to revealing something truthful that transmutes or transforms somebody and that stays beyond the experience. Like, does sex has a special talent or potential in going beyond the experience, no matter how interesting the experience is? That's my first question. Mm-hmm. And let's say you say yes. Like a footnote, maybe, this tantric terminology, this erotic richness of penetration and immersion and surrender and like basically everything vibrates with that. Is it an analogy or is it describing it? Yeah, so that's like maybe the first part. And the second part is then the second question. In case sex is talented for revealing something absolute. And I'm not asking for like techniques or things that I can try. Like, really not, yeah. Could you maybe, even though, make the cosmology or what happens then, let's say, between pranic currents in the subtle fields? For example, if a mouth and a yoni meet, what are we creating then? What is the kind of prayer that we are praying then?
Well, first of all, the answer is yes, yes, yes. The answer is very simple. The answer is very straightforward in a sense that it has always been known everywhere. So it has been, and wherever it has understood, of course, immediately there are attempts were made how to make this all possible in any given social setting. So, and there's a lot of work in that area done, a lot of fascinating stuff out there that one can read about in terms of how sex, the particular attitude towards sex and sexuality throughout different cultures. So that in itself would be, if we to look at the cross-section of that, how it's been viewed, it will define a given culture in terms of the very relationship that culture has with the spirit. Or in reverse, the relationship, or rather the expressive potentiality of a given culture in terms of how that what becomes in many, many instances a forbidden force. Because this force, right, let's just maybe just really, if you want to speak about it in this sense, we can of course adopt the approach with the more poetic, metaphoric and allegoric, right, way of speaking about it. But what right now feels fitting to say that the primal understanding here is that everything is Eros. And I speak about it on every occasion. There's a continuity over the years. Maybe guys seem to be more prone to ask these questions, right? But these questions were asked by ladies as well throughout my teaching, let's say, career as someone holding space. So the shortest understanding about this is that Eros is the vapor we breathe. So Eros, as that myth of Kamadeva, the Eros is really at the subatomic level. So really everything in the universe, therefore, is the expression of that in the first place. So the metaphysical outline of the creation processes in every single culture, in all cultures, have this Eros at its center. There is some kind of primordial original act. There is something that is what is at the origin of it all. And there are, of course, if we come to these exchanges, there are Sanskrit terms or terms that are used in Indian metaphysical discourse, philosophical discourses, esoteric, more coded in metaphor, but they are explicitly that. Explicitly that. Who remembers that when we talk about the letters being vomited, ejected, vomited? Was it in Mexico? In Mexico? Oh, right? Who was there? Yeah. But it's one of the ways of speaking about it. Another way is emission. Emission literally as a grand ejaculation. So this emission, that what emits out of the plentitude. So the three alchemical substances are very clearly pointing out to that. You know, the white, the red, right, and the black. See, they all speak to these primal substances. So really, of course, culturally speaking, this discourse surfaces, resurfaces in its explicitity and in more explicit nature, in more explicit, in less explicit way. But if I understand what you are sharing, what you're asking, that you're asking confirmation, you're asking the insight or the possibility. Easy way to respond to this would be simply that everything is erotic. Everything. Or the way we express ourselves sexually, we express ourselves in the totality of our being. It doesn't matter how it may be expressed in a given moment in time. But we always are expressing the totality of our being in that. So the slippery slope of that, of course, here, and I know you're not asking about the techniques or ways, but people sometimes wonder why that particular part of tantric teaching was most alluring for Westerners during the time of great experimentations. Why that particular part, right? I don't want to use the word hijacked, because some speak about this in this manner, in this way, that only this, what comprises about 13% of tantric practices, were somehow brought into the main curriculum of this kind of retreats or workshops. And some tantra already gained that popularity. And there is a word, neo-tantra. You can Google it and you will see. Neo-tantra is that, what that is, sex workshops. Based on this and that. And effectively speaking, of course, we can't just dismiss it all. There were genuine attempts to overcome, perhaps, that whole movement, which was exemplified as that rebellious attitude of the youth towards, let's say, certain values that were continually imposed, and it happened circa, let's say, post-war period. Post-war period, when this suddenly was accompanied by greater sense of self-actualization, in a sense people realize what they want to be. They don't want to be told. They don't want to just be engineered somewhere. They want to live life, and that means to take risks. That means to be on the cutting edge. This and that, right? It's a cultural thing. Our age is by far much safer, incomparably safer than what the 60s and the 70s were. When people went for something back then, they really meant it. Meant it. People boarded the planes from California, middle class, from New York, with professions, with jobs, and checked themselves in the ashrams. Just like that. Followed Guru, disregarded all this, do you think that nobody was warning them back then? No. People wanted to find out for themselves. It's a different kind of people. Immediately the astrologers will tell you why. It was the age of Scorpio. It was that, the phase of Scorpio. So there was this, sex, drug, rock and roll. But why that particular part was picked? Because there was also the deep need in a society to overcome this lingering, that kind of traces of, particularly I would say now in Anglo-Saxon countries, very heavy influence of that Puritanism, Victorian Puritanism, American Puritanism, which, of course, we know the underbelly of that is those houses, right? And all that. So, situation didn't change much, So whatever is being suppressed, it will express itself in an ugly way. There were very few teachers who were willing to speak about it in as direct manner as Osho did back in his day. Speak about it in an, cut through it all, really unapologetic way. And again, the astrologers scrutinized, analyzed him. He was a Scorpio, So what else would you expect? But that interest, interest to be liberated. People were fed up being cut in half, divided in half. Everything up to here is kind of accepted. Everything down there is like a jungle. Nobody knows what to expect. Dark, murky waters. So that as maybe perplexing it is, in the earlier years when I ventured, it will take time to first, I would begin the gatherings in California. So there's a workshop this weekend. It's Tantra, keeping our clothes on. You understand, folks? So it's like to distinguish, there's a so-and-so offering a Tantric weekend. And so I have to tell them, I have to disappoint you. It's going to be Tantra, keeping your clothes on. And of course, people were great sport and do we have to, this. So, but I understand why that is. It certainly because there was a need to. There's therapeutic reason for that. In Tantra itself, of course, these are formidable practices. Formidable because it's a slippery slope. So it can really derail someone. And it's known as Rudrayamala. And it's not couples. In a proper way, it is performed by maybe one couple for the whole kula. It will be a grand performance. So there would be summoning up of all the forces. You see? Those who are engaged in that act, usually adept, has to be already fully stabilized, established. So there is no possibility of slipping into just the carnal thought. So the consciousness has to be at the level, holding it all. Usually the partner for that chosen from lower caste women, because they are less encumbered by social conditioning. Simple as that. Because they're more liberated already. They have nothing to lose. They don't belong to the caste. So they don't carry this imprint of social convention. And then it will be performed in a way where the female will be worshipped as the goddess. So, and the recreation, complete and utter Rudrayamala, the recreation of the original act. It's not just some kind of breathing in front of each other, facing right, sitting, sweating, being naked, being okay, seeing partners' genitals, and perhaps more than okay. What are you asking here? What you're touching on here is, if I were to reflect anything back, this is why I said it's the theme. It's a whole theme, really. And the theme here is that there is something for you to also gain access to what truly is at that place where you don't find, let's say, answer to what you see, maybe that purity that you want to see, that purity in the essence, or the essence being there expressed itself without any kind of shame-ridden convention covered by casualty of the situation. But I want reflect to you that at the very same time, life is brutal. You see? brutal, and it's part of it as well. Life is brutal in a sense that that's what is also the expression of it. Abrahamic traditions did everything to mess up natural order of things, deeply and profoundly, and systematically for a prolonged period of time. Prolonged period of time. We can't just blame Anglo-Saxon culture for that Puritanism. The world was submerged into that. Missionaries and Jesuits went in every part of the world where people lived in the innocence of their communion with nature, where that innocence was translated into rites of passages, where nakedness was part of daily life, only to bring shame with the cross. See? Because you can't rule people who are comfortable naked. You can only rule people who feel shame. So that goes a long way. Dividing human in half, dividing somehow, gives the access to manipulate them. When you feel totality, you are unmanipulatable. And sex, of course, here holds tremendous power, because this is the universal power experienced at that very, very vintage point of individuality. So, whatever the echoes of that, resonance of that left, most of us carry that to some degree. You see? And some of us are more maybe in a better, let's say, set up because we belong to different cultures where this was not so emphatic, where it wasn't so messed up, effectively speaking. So, why is it a slippery slope in terms of spiritual practices? And because the sex is the greatest power, is the ultimate power. Sex is at the root of everything. Everything. Ojas, as the final byproduct of all digestive processes, what constitute that final tissue, shukra, is what gives us vitality, what strengthens our auric field, what gives us healthy sense of self, like that individual self, what gives us the impetus to create everything. So this vitality here is intricately interconnected to the way we can digest information, in the way we can digest food, the way we can digest everything. So then byproduct of it all becomes the very, very both essence of our vitality and also essence of our procreativity. Both. This is the nature's way to achieve marvelous things all at once. It's a biological substance expressed in actual fluids and the longevity of that. And at the same time, is that what gives the fountain of creative expression in every field, in any enterprise. So when that essence is used by those who, let's say, enter the path of transformation, enter the path, that's what drives the process, nothing else, because that's the fuel. It's not the part of our discourse here, but so often having to go back to this, the importance of these substances, Ojas, Tejas, and Prana, which are the refined essences of the elemental order, the refined essences of fire, refined essences of air, the Vayus, and refined essences of water. See? So Ojas, Tejas, and Prana is, if it's not developed, there's no spiritual progress, no transformation, nothing. We can sit and talk for, the whole life we can talk about, we can just talk, but what does the job is that? There has to be enough of that substance to burn, to fuel, so that flame burns bright, but doesn't just combust itself. And there needs to be enough air, prana. So all this is compared to a lamp, that traditional lamp with the wicker, submerged in oil, flame, and access to oxygen. In a spiritual sense, that's what illumines everything, illumines the process. So there are many, many extraordinary insights, breakthroughs I've witnessed myself and read about and heard about. But then there is not enough of that substance, not enough of that ojas. And it's not even raw ojas, not even just ojas that makes babies, or that fluid that is ejaculated in the moment of discharge. No. Ojas we're speaking about here, it's a rarefied ojas. It's the ojas that is transformed from that raw state and is become as a molten gold. Molten gold. See? So then, that internal flame, that fire of Tejas, burns with a different quality. It doesn't smoke. It doesn't have foul smell. It doesn't leave this sense of something burnt in the system. You see? And then providing there are no blockages and prana just flows everywhere. So that all this is the internal anatomy of the process. The internal, you see, here. So in the process of awakening or activation even of pranic forces, at the Muladhara, awakening of release of life force immediately awakens the second chakra, Svadhisthana, because they're within immediate proximity. Instantaneously. Even if, let's say in this example, Kundalini is not left Muladhara, it will spin and begins to activate Svadhisthana. So Svadhisthana may not even entered, but it already made itself known with a tremendous increase of sexuality. One discovers one's sexuality, one suddenly becomes much more erotic in every way. You see? So at that stage, any kind of Rudrayamala will be detrimental. There will be complete and utter identity with the body still. And when that is performed, then the effect is averse. So it reinforces, you see? It reinforces one's attachment here. So this is why in every tradition, including Tantra, there was this agreement of the importance of this being able to contain that energy, build that energy, being able to transmute that energy above all else. Or for the householders who are in a healthy relationship, ideally loving relationship, or at least relationship when there is a chemistry, which is also a raw expression of love. Why not? It may be not a platonic love, doesn't have to be, but at least we do love each other's pheromones, not put off by them, right? Like good animals smelling each other at a distance and knowing that's my mate. So that is then legitimizes, you see? So there is no complete loss of Ojas. Partial, yes, still. There will always be that, whether we like it or not. The one who is single compared to the one who is in a relationship, sexual relationship, I'm not talking about who is screwing around. It's out. It's gone. Will always be in more advantage situation than one is in a relationship, which was because of that. But if one is in a relationship and one's relationship is healthy and fruitful, then it is better than one is single and then basically engages in casual sex. Because then it's a tremendous loss of energy. You see? Tremendous loss of energy. Men who think that, because they're emotionally not involved, woman needs to be involved, but we men are so much more simple, straightforward, job done, whatever, zip it up, and get on with your day, maybe at the surface value, but the impact is emptying. Impact is sense of something admitting that one is just a dog. But, even if smelling nice and wearing nice clothes. So that's not a nice feeling about oneself, you see? So all this combined, and I want to bring it as kind of like, because I said it's a very big theme and we want to give also a chance to others this evening. So my always encouragement is to understand that this most intimate aspect of ourselves here is indeed always a replica, a reflection, an expression of course, utterly and entirely, if only we observe things more attentively. Everything constantly communicates that, particularly at a certain time, maybe there is this constant analogy, right? Ancient cultures, ancient civilizations were unapologetically that. This was constantly there. You see, with the arrival of great religions, there is this, I don't know whether what the need was to, there are many different perspectives, not quite clear to me. What was this really all about? Why could it be such a big miss? What was at stake here? Particularly Abrahamic tradition is like even coming up with an idea of the original sin, get going, being born, it's a big mess. It's really not at all the language of the God and nature and everything. So Whereas in essence, the more we live, at least that's how what I feel is always, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's like Eros is. He would, in fact, even speaking about it has this element as well of. Don't want to name this. It's every experience carries that, one way or another, right? So. Where you're coming from, what you feel is, it's for you to recreate that. You see? You might be blessed in being in a relationship and finding that person who would complete that for you, not complete you, but complete that what you see and feel. But at the same time, I don't want you to create this impossible kind of unattainable, because it's a tall order to have some guy with an erection to see himself as, Shiva. He might be settled on Apollo or, I don't know, Zeus, but Shiva is a kind of stretch, so maybe we should be a little bit more forgiving and start somewhere. Thank you, man. But we must publish this clip. It has to go out. It's just so good.